Hello guys, and welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to be looking at Vray Volumetric Fog. So follow along. I did say there was going to be quite a few new tutorials coming out, so keep up, god damn it. Okay, so in this scene I've got a ground plane, nothing special there, and a cube with a V-Ray rectangle light, just created by going to create V-Ray rectangle light, wherever that may be in here. Oh dear, there we go. Yeah, so in here. And I've just got it set to invisible so we can't see it. And at the moment we've got nothing in the scene whatsoever. So, next up, let's get the Hypershade open, and let's firstly create a V-Ray MTL shader, and let's assign that to our cube. Okay, so we've got a shader. Let's just graph that network and have a little look at the shading group. If you click on that, it'll open up the V-Ray shading group. And we can see that in here we've got a slot for a volume material, so that's what we need to create next, a volume material node. So if you scroll down through all your shaders, you should come across a Vray Environment Fog. So we'll click that. So now we've got a fog. Not a lot to see there. Click back on the shading group, and then middle mouse drag onto the word volume material. Those two are now connected. So if we render now, we're not going to see a whole lot. Okay, so we've just got the cube and some really bad grainy shadows because I haven't upped the samples. But this is just, I'm trying to speed through this. Okay, so the next thing you need to do to actually start to make this work is to go into your original V-Ray shader and pull down the opacity map to black. Okay. So what we're introducing really is an override of the opacity, and the environment fog is going to pick that up. And we'll just render. Things may slow down a little. And there we have it, environment fog, which I must admit looks really cool. It's a very strange look. We can just go a bit closer perhaps. Actually, if I get that light a little bit closer. Up. Just have a little look at what's going on here. Obviously I'm only rendering at 640 by 480, so things are going to be quicker anyway than if you was rendering in HD. So we can see that the fog kind of drops off around here, the light is leaking through it, it's creating some kind of shadow on the floor. So it's quite an interesting shape, and obviously we can scale this up into a cube and render. Obviously I'll pause the renders when things start to get a bit slow. This isn't too bad though. So now we can see what we mean by volumetric is that light, as it hits this volume, tapers off as it goes down because it's thicker and thicker and it's harder to get that light through it. I might just switch on GI while I'm here. Oh, GI is on. Excuse me. So a neat thing we can do with this volume, I mean firstly let's just go through a couple of parameters inside the environment fog itself. What we can do here is we can change the distance, the density, so obviously if I bring that density right down, when I render now, it's going to be a lot more see-through, as you see. So I mean, we can apply this fog to any kind of shape. So if you wanted to create a ghost or some kind of apparition like that, and you just get some kind of human figure and apply this shader to it, and you'd get something sort of neat going on. And you could animate this fog density. You've also got a fog distance, which is sort of the amount that the light travels through it. Let's just render that. So it really thickens up the bottom and makes this a much harder volume for the light to travel through. So we can bring that up and see the difference. so we can see the light travelling, through it a lot better there. And we can add up the subdivisions and add more GI bounces, etc. But we don't really need to look at that. So the next thing I want to do is run a texture through this whole thing, 3D texture. So let's just graph the fog material. Let's go into our 3D textures, and for this I think I'm going to use, just for this I'm going to use a marble texture, and we want to drag that into the fog density. So I'll middle mouse on the texture and drag that over there. Now if we click on the actual 3D texture itself, because this is using sort of the alpha values of this texture, I'm going to bring the vein color down to 0. I might play around with this vein width a little bit, just so we get some breakup. It might be a bit harsh, so I might pull that contrast out a little bit. Okay, let's see what we've got now. So a much slower render. I'm going to pause this. Right, so I'm just going to unpause the video there. We've got like a 4:20 render, which you don't really want to be sitting and waiting, and we haven't even got a really nice look. So what we've got is loads and loads of detail in here from the texture, and that's because our 3D placement node is set to kind of the default size when it comes in, so it's keeping our UVs in the same small UV space. So we need to scale that up, and if I just hit 4 and grab the texture node, we're just going to scale this up, placement node, sorry, scale this up around the box cube thing. Let's just do a bit of scaling. I'm not going to be too perfectionist about this. Right, okay, so that'll do, and then it's just hit another render, see the very different look that we get. Should render a bit quicker as well, but I think I'll pause. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got half the render time and a much more interesting look. I mean, that looks pretty amazing, and we can see the light coming through it and the shadows coming through it and affecting the floor. Got some really nice detail and stuff. So I guess the question is, well, what can this be used for apart from just looking really flipping cool? Clouds, really. Clouds or mist on the floor and that kind of thing, because obviously we can go in and we can animate the texture parameters on the marble itself, animate any of these, so we get, some swirly stuff going on. Could create a nice kind of time-lapse set of clouds, or just use them as clouds. So if we scale this down and we were to look up underneath it, we would hopefully get clouds with a little bit of messing around. But there's going to be a problem, and we'll look into that in a second. So let's just hit render again now. So that rendered really like 15 seconds just by scaling that down. So we're using a much smaller amount of the 3D texture node to placement node to create the clouds. So we can add a drop off so that we don't see the edges, but if it's scaled out enough and it's in our scene, it's going to look cool. The problem arises when everyone starts thinking, do you know what, I'm going to create a jet with rockets and I'm going to fly it through the clouds and it's going to look awesome. So if we hit render around here, coming up to the clouds, we can see that the clouds are there, which is all good. I'm just going to hit escape because we know what's going to happen. The problem arises when we want to start flying through the clouds. Okay, let's hit render now. Let's see what we get. Damn! So all we're now seeing is the ground plane, and there are no clouds within this volume, within this object. So that's because we haven't told Vray that this is an actual environment volume, it's more of an object volume. So there's a way around that, and I will attempt to go through that now. It's sort of fairly straightforward really, so let's just go back a few steps. We're going to get rid of the environment volume, the texture node, placement node. We're just going to keep the Mto Shader. Get rid of the render view for a minute. So there are a couple of steps we need to take to get this working. So let's go into the render globals first, and this is where you need to apply the environment fog. So we need to scroll down until you find the environment drop down menu, okay, and down here see there's a little tick box that says use environment volume. So we'll tick that, and then it's asking for an environment shader. Well, we know what we've got to create there. We've got to create we've got to browse to the, let me just try and get this menu over here. We've got to browse to the Vray Environment Fog. So that's all good. So now we've got an environment fog sitting there, and we've got a Vray shader sitting on here. But the two aren't connected in any way whatsoever at the moment, which is a problem. So we need to go into the relationship editor. Now stay with me here. It's really not that bad. We need to open up sets. So with the sets open, on the left hand side we're going to click our environment fog, and on the right hand side we're going to click our cube. So now if we hit render, obviously what we haven't got at the moment is any texture plumbed into this environment shader, so let's just quickly do that. So once more we're going to stick in the marble, and we're going to select the environment shader, and I'm going to middle mouse over to the fog density, and I'm just going to go into the fog density and turn that down to black, pull some of these down a little bit, just kind of change this a bit, and one last thing is to scale up the placement node, the 3D placement node, bring that up to around here. Much bigger. Okay, so let's just sort of do a render from here first, see what we got. All good, we can see that it's there. Obviously you guys are going to have to, fine tune your clouds. I'm just racing through this so you understand the process behind this. So yeah, we've got the clouds. So let's do the test. Let's go inside the volume, just above a bit, and obviously if you'd created your clouds correctly, you'd have some nice sort of willows and wisps and whatnot going on. But really here we just want to see if this process has worked. So there we go, we can see this work. We can see that we are inside this volume, and that's working because Vray now knows that this is an environment volume, but it's connected via a set to the shape itself. It's a clever little workaround. As I said, it's going to look a bit weird. You're going to have to really play around with your density values and whatnot to get this to sort of look like clouds, going through the clouds. But other than that, it's a neat little feature of Vray. Not sure if many of you guys really knew about that, but let me know in the comments if this helped you out at all. And I'll see you guys on the next tutorial. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye bye.